Hey guys, welcome to the latest episode of Beyond the Tape, a podcast where we discuss cool things happening in the mountain bike industry with cool people behind the scenes and doing rad things. In this episode, I'm chatting with someone really behind the scenes at one of the big companies. But before I move on to that, I want to talk about some sponsors. In this podcast, we have a new sponsor, Tailored Trails from Tasmania. These guys are Tassie's specialists for statewide transfers, private group shuttles, and all-inclusive packages. Operating on all the major bike networks in Tasmania, including Derby, Maydena, St. Helens, and the West Coast, you can pretty much go everywhere and not have to hassle about booking or traveling or doing all the hard stuff. You basically rock up and they'll do it all for you. They're dedicated private group operators that cater for groups of up to 18 people. And they also take care of all logistics and planning. So basically, as I said, you do nothing. Mark is a rider and he owns it, so they're truly rider owned. The next podcast sponsor and one of the guys that come on board from day dot is NS Dynamics, one of our greatest sponsors. They are Australia's premier suspension service centre in Australia. The guys there have been doing this for over 20 years and know how to make your suspension feel better than you. Like, honestly, once I've ridden my bike for 2 or 3 weeks, I'll send it up there and get it serviced. It only takes about a week, and most of that is due to Ozpost being hopeless. Their turnarounds are crazy when that stuff actually gets there. Franked Mountain Bike Apparel is based in WA. They offer some of the most cutting-edge clothing, especially their jerseys. Like, I love their lightweight jersey. Currently in the works doing a custom one for my fat to fast campaign for nationals. So yeah, if you want a custom jersey and get something sorted from those guys, hit up Francis from Franked and you'll get you sorted. FE Sports are amongst the leading industry experts when it comes to sporting product imports, distribution, wholesale and customer service in Australia and New Zealand. They are the official distributors for brands such as 100%, Pirelli, Wahoo, Aftershokz, Theragun, Wera, Absolute Black, Galfer Bike, and even more. It's crazy what they have. If you can't find anything from those guys, make sure that you also hit up to our Biko. I've just ordered some of their factor hubs, some of the best hubs I've ever heard and ever looked at. Got some anodized red puppies coming. Currently stuck in Melbourne, have been for a while, but yeah. Looking forward to getting those and lacing them up on my new Marin. Of course, Dirt Surf and my guards will be keeping that thing protected. Crush will be keeping that thing clean. And Fish will be protecting my hands. Share the love and use Beyond the Tape at checkout for a bit of a discount. Anyway, let's move on to this podcast. These intros are getting too long. I'm talking with Nat from Mountain Bikes Direct. Here we chat about supply issues, what's happening on the supply chain, how things are just taking forever to get sent from Mountain Bikes Direct to people's places, just a bit of everything. And we'll also talk about how he got there. So it's a pretty interesting episode. We're a bit slow on getting the discount or affiliate code or whatever it is sorted. So we're in the process of that. Keep an eye on our Instagram. So at Beyond the Tape podcast, and we'll throw up the discount code there when it's ready and you will get a sweet discount. Anyway, grab a beer, grab a water, grab a wine, grab whatever makes you happy and enjoy this episode. Easy, man. Well, Nat, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for reaching out and asking to come on. It's not often that happens.
Yeah, I follow you on Instagram. And I think I saw you post a story or something about, like, I can't find rims for my bike. And yeah, we've been talking about stock, obviously, the whole industry is affected by stock shortages at the moment. And yeah, it's funny, a lot of my mates are talking about how, they can't find tires for their bikes, or, like, I've broken a chain, can't find a, it's really, a lot of people are now talking about it. So it was funny when you posted that. I was like, oh, maybe we should say something, talk about it, because we've got a pretty good, insight. I spoke to our CEO. I was like, oh, I think we should do this podcast and just talk about, like, it's not if you go on our website, Mountain Bikes Direct, like you might see some things out of stock. It's not really our fault. It's like everyone is dealing with this problem at the moment. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's the first time in a couple of years, I think, that I've kind of gone down a full custom build. I've usually just bought like whole bikes, but because of some of the parts and because of a few of the components that I got on the stock build, obviously I got sponsorship commitments and a few other things, but I just needed some cheaper rims. And obviously everyone wants those DTs, and I was lucky that Wheelride, the local shop here, had some. But like no one has anything. It was insane.
Yeah. I think if ever there was a time not to build a custom bike, it's right now, because you don't want to like put everything together and get stitched up because you can't find, a chain ring or something. You'd be pretty sad looking at your bike in the corner of the room with everything but the last part.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of good because I'm injured, so I shouldn't be riding anyway. So it's good to have a non-built bike just sitting in my room. But but for those who don't know, like who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I run the kind of inventory side of Mountain Bikes Direct. So I think a lot of people, most of your listeners probably heard of us, but yeah, Mountain Bikes Direct is we kind of think of ourselves as a go-to online store for mountain bike parts and accessories in Australia. We also have a New Zealand business now as well, which is quickly growing. But Mountain Bikes Direct's been around for about 8 years. It was originally started by kind of two couples. So Michael and Jen and Tim and Mel. People probably might know Tim and Michael, especially from Southeast Queensland. Tim and Michael originally owned For the Riders and started For the Riders like way back in, I don't know, I think the late 90s. I think one of them was still in school when they started that business. And yeah, they owned For the Riders and ran For the Riders for all through the early 2000s. And, I remember, when I was getting into mountain biking, that was the kind of go-to, that was like the mountain bike shop in Australia at that time. And then actually Mountain Bikes Direct started and they ran the two businesses kind of in tandem with one another. And then they sold For the Riders. It's still going today. I think it's still charging along. It's a pretty, solid shop in Southeast Queensland. And they've been fully focused on Mountain Bikes Direct since then. So it's a growing business, a pretty big team now. It's about, I don't know how many people work, probably 25, 30 odd people.
Yeah, right. That's pretty big.
Yeah. We also, that doesn't include our warehouse. So we actually run a 3PL warehouse. We don't own our own warehouse. So it's fairly unique. Also gives us another advantage. So everyone works remotely. We don't have any, there's no head office or anything. I live in Darwin. Most of the guys in my team are on East Coast. So up and down the East Coast. Most people live near trails. So it's funny. It's a pretty good, it's a great place to work. I think a lot of the guys appreciate being able to live somewhere, it's like one of our content guys lives in Bright, and pretty stoked mountain biker and would probably struggle to find a job in Bright otherwise. So it's, there's a lot of guys like that, guys and girls actually, I should say, that live and breathe mountain biking, which is cool. Two guys live in vans full time. They're up on the west. Yeah, they're up in like Exmouth at the moment, diving with whales. I think so. It's cool. So that's kind of That's kind of Mountain Bikes Direct. Yeah, I guess everyone's pretty familiar with what we do otherwise, I think.
I had no idea they came from For the Riders. Like, that store has popped up in so many conversations over time. Like, it's been insane. It's definitely a pivotal store in the country.
Yeah, I remember being a sales rep years ago and using For the Riders. They still own the business 8 or 9 years ago, and like the fit out and the just the look and feel of the shop was unlike anything I'd been to. I'd seen at that time. These days, there's a few more stores that are really drive that like premium mountain bike, like really for that kind of core audience, I think. But 10 years ago or so, it was the shop. Yeah.
And how, like, you mentioned you're up in Northern Territory. There's not like a lot of mountain biking and stuff. Well, there is a kind of underground scene up there, but it's not like the hilliest place in Australia, is it?
No. I only moved up here at the start of the year with my partner, who's a teacher. So we came for her work. No, it's definitely, I live in Darwin as well. So Darwin's pretty hot, is very flat. The tallest hill that you could ride on in Darwin would be 30 meters of elevation, 20 meters of elevation. So definitely not. It's definitely not. I'm originally from Sydney. I mean, Sydney's not exactly known for massive hills, but we've got pretty good elevation to work with. But the riding, I was pretty pleasant. I didn't come for the riding, obviously. I was pretty pleasantly surprised. Like, there's a couple of trails, all basically community built around Darwin. There's a pretty strong club, the Darwin Off-Road Cyclists, that run races probably once a month. We basically cross country format only, because you can't really run a downhill. Yeah, downhill race would be done in 20 seconds. It wouldn't be that exciting. But yeah, no, it's cool. Darwin itself is a very small community. People are very friendly, and people are already friendly in the mountain bike community. So when you double it up, it's nice. There is some. I've been down to Catherine, which is 3 hours south of here. That's got there was a trail network built by the national parks 2 years ago. It's called Nitbullock Gorge. That's actually quite a nice network of still probably what you'd call mellow, just general trails. Like, I don't know how you describe, your average national park built trail network. But I think that might be one to watch. I know that they're still trying to grow that a little bit. It's a decent amount of elevation. It's a very stunning part of the country. So, yeah. But
yeah, it is what it is, and you make what you can out of it.
Yeah, totally.
You mentioned you were a sales rep for a little while there. What's the transition been like, going from face-to-face roles and working with a home base to now working remotely? Because I've gone through the same thing, and it's a bit weird waking up and taking 5 steps to the office every day. Like, is it?
Yeah, I have my ritual morning coffee. I have to walk down to the coffee shop and buy a coffee and sit there for half an hour. If I don't do that, I start with a bad day. But yeah, definitely. Like, it's been. I mean, I was actually out of the industry last year, doing different type of work. I was working remotely, and I hated that. But it was probably the company I was working for just wasn't that geared up for working remotely. Whereas, Mountain Bikes Direct been remote for I think 6 years, so way ahead of the curve. For compared to most companies, and we're pretty well equipped. Like we just have we have a couple of software tools that help everyone work together. The kind of imagery team is for now about to be 5 people. We all work really well together. It's quite smooth. It's quite easy. I find, people, if you're not around people, you can't waste so much time necessarily. You sort of have to get down and do the work a little bit. It's a funny one because sometimes you do find yourself like doubling up on something by accident, or once you get a hang of it, it works well. It's okay.
It's definitely, it can be challenging in some spots, but it's also really good, like company politics. And as you said, talking to people and wasting time is definitely not as easy when you're just by yourself.
No, yeah.
What was your how did you kind of what was your pathway to that job, I guess?
I probably, would I call it a typical pathway? I, like everyone, cut my teeth in a bike shop. Like I started working in a bike shop I did a couple of weekend shifts in year 12 when I was finishing school, and then did more work at a shop in Western Sydney, all for the first 2 years of uni. It was like a typical neighbourhood bike shop, I'd say, but they're pretty busy sales floor, selling all kinds of bikes, dealing with lots of people. I think you can learn a lot from a job like that. Like it's chaotic, it's quite engaging. You're dealing with lots of different people's problems. I really suggest everyone do a job like that at some point, especially early on. And then I was lucky to get a job at a smaller wholesaler based in Sydney called Link Sports. So Link Sports are like, they do, they represent brands like KS, Spank, IXS, mainly, more niche mountain bike brands, you'd probably say. So I worked at Link Sports for 3 years, and doing just jack of all trades, doing a lot of sales rep stuff, a bit of like product management, brand management type work. Then I actually moved to Europe. I was doing my uni while I was at Link Sports. I did an economics degree. I finished that, and I moved to Europe, and I got a job at We the People, the
sick
brand.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so they're based in Cologne, Germany. I was a product manager there. So We the People's pretty big brand. Like they have 6 different BMX kind of brands under their banner. They also do a gravel and bikepacking brand called Bomb Track.
Is that them? I never connected those two. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So
that makes sense.
I was a Bomb Track product manager. So that means like I was responsible for like the product speccing and kind of the kind of model brand strategy a little bit. It was really fun job, working with, factory in Taiwan, a couple of core distributors, and did some cool bikes, which was exciting. And then I came home back to Australia. I did a 1-year stint at Shepherd's, who are the Scott Avanti. They're wholly owned by Scott. They do Scott and Avanti bikes. Also Malvern Star. They also do like Repco branded bikes that get sold into Big W, which is very big part of the industry that probably most people wouldn't think about. And they also look after like other parts accessories brands like Park Tool and Hero, a few Kenda, a few other brands like that. So I was sales rep for Shepherd's. I only stuck around for a year. So that was probably the same experience that many people in the bike industry get, which is like, I've spent too many years doing this now. I'm a bit burnt out. I want to try something else. And I had a decent opportunity to do some kind of consulting work, totally different. And then that takes me up to today, basically, like start of the year, moved to Darwin, needed to find a job, and I've landed in this inventory position. So we, that's the abbreviated version. There's a few other twists and turns in there, but I love the bike and love working in the bike industry, love working around like-minded people, and it's cool.
Yeah, I think, I'm genuinely surprised I didn't know about the bomb track thing. That's kind of blown me away. But yeah, we the people do a lot of stuff. I think they're salt components.
Yeah. Radio bikes. Yeah. Eclat.
Okay. Yep.
Fuse protection. They run their own distribution company in Europe, which is pretty big, obviously, because they're German-based. Most people don't even know they're German. Most people would assume they're probably American because they've got a little bit of an American vibe. At least that's what most people said to me.
Well, We the People's like the first line of the American Constitution, right? Like,
and Harry, the owner, he was like, he is probably not credited enough with starting the modern BMX industry. Like before We the People came around, that most BMX bikes were made in the US, low volumes, pretty expensive, not that accessible for younger kids. And there were a few other companies doing the same thing at the same time, but basically he found some factories in Asia that could make good bikes at good prices, basically, and made the BMX bike more accessible. And so now all of those kids who can buy a $600-700 BMX bike that works pretty well, that's really kind of in a way a credit to him and that company. So it's pretty it's obviously so such an iconic brand, and cool.
Never really thought about it like that, because I guess there was that time where it was like S&M and all those kind of big like T1s.
Well, and even like that. Even going back further, right? Like it was like now those super retro bikes that people really lust after. Like this is 80s stuff like Kuwahara or even Mongoose or GT. Like those bikes are shithouse, let's be honest. They weren't that good to ride. They might be collectible now. They weren't that good to ride. They broke a lot and they were a bit expensive. That's why they're collectible now, because no one could afford them. And so we had to take a step forwards from there. And that's how we've ended up here. It's funny.
I think you see a lot of mirroring between the BMX kind of companies and stuff and mountain biking as well. Like obviously we had this niche product that no one really wanted, and no one really wanted to take to a mass market because we had this image of rebels that went off-road or hippies that went and explored. And I guess BMX is a bit more of that rugged punk scene. But like watching it grow to now where you've got Specialized and Giant and Trek and those guys making, man, the bike you can get for $3,500 these days. I mean, it is still an expensive bike, but and you're not going to break it. Like it's
leagues ahead.
Yeah. What's like, you've been through a multitude of roles there. Was there like a goal that you had in mind to get to any of these roles, or?
No, not really. I've been very lucky with some of the opportunities that have come to me. It's hard if you're Australian. If you're Australian and you want to work in the bike industry, kind of, like above just a bike shop job. There's lots of excellent bike shop jobs. There's lots of great people working in bike shops. But if you want to work in a bigger company and have an opportunity at doing different things, it's pretty hard in Australia. I think there's not that many jobs, especially outside of like conventional sales. There's lots of wholesalers, but the wholesalers are basically, they're sales companies, and so you're either a salesperson or you're supporting salespeople. And so that's why I moved to Europe to find an interesting job. I probably would have stayed there, but some personal things that meant I had to come home, and I guess I went at Mountain Bikes Direct because it's a pretty cool company. I get to live in a place like Darwin. Otherwise, I don't know what I'd be doing for work if I couldn't do this job. We're doing some cool things that I guess it's interesting. So I'd like my bit of advice for anyone who's looking for a good job in the bike industry in Australia is probably leave.
Yep.
Do some work elsewhere and then come back, because you get much more exposure outside of the country. Yeah,
for sure. It's really hard to break through that barrier here of going from the workshop or the sales floor to those bigger companies, and it's tough. But if you put the work in and, as you say, go and try and make your name elsewhere and come back and do those type of things, you definitely end up in a good position.
And it's just about exposure, right? You just see there's some unique things about the Australian market that you might not understand unless you go overseas. The size of the bicycle industry in Europe is crazy.
Oh, it's ridiculous, right? Yeah.
You're talking about multi-billion-dollar publicly listed companies kind of working in the industry, and some people might turn their nose up at that. It's not that kind of core. It's not like it's not an enthusiast thing anymore. But the other thing is, like, everyone rides a bike on the street in Europe. Like, it's like a bike company can hold their head up next to a car company and say, we move the same number of people. And so they're very important for, like, kind of society, whatever, right? So it's when people, you see like weird Euro things posted on Pink Bike or whatever, and people in the comments section are like, who's buying that? It's like a lot of people. It's just different there. Yeah. So
I'll never forget. Like, I lived in Bremen up in Germany for 6 to 8 months, and man, the first time I was walking on the street, I nearly got hit by this bike that was doing 100,000 k's an hour, and I realized, like, I was standing in the red pavers on the path, and it's like, that's the bike lane. I'm like, wait, you not have to mix it up with the cars and nearly die every day? Like, this is a whole different ball game. Like, they truly use bikes for what they're meant for that transport.
Yeah, and it has benefits for everywhere, right? Like, in places like Switzerland, lots of people get around by bike, but then they also mountain bikers, because they spend this, during the week they're cycling to work, and on the weekend they're already cyclists, and so they're going on their mountain bike and they're going riding in the Alps, and it has like Swiss mountain biking is pretty insane.
Exactly.
Chairlift assisted riding, like, from 4,000 meters of elevation. Like, that's wild.
Well, you don't have that up in Darwin?
No, I wish.
A chairlift for that 30-meter hill would be
that's it.
What do you were you always riding bikes and into bikes and stuff since school, or is it? Like, first proper. I always rode bikes since I was like a kid, like 3 or 4 years old, going bike rides with my dad. Just around the town, around parks of town or whatever, and I got my first mountain bike. I saved up some money, got like a Gary Fisher dirt jump bike when I was like 13. Got it for a deal at Clarence Street Cyclery, 50% off if I remember correctly.
yeah, it just went from there. Been quite into BMX and dirt jump, sort of type riding until I was just after finishing school, and then since then ridden everything, like obviously always mountain bikes, but also a lot of bike touring and bike packing, big multi-month trips with pannier bags and seeing interesting parts of the world, and raced a bunch of track and lots of stuff. If it's got two wheels, I'm pretty into it. It's a really fun way. It's a fun way to meet people and make friends and keep fit, and it's all good.
There's this like weird connection between BMX and dirt jumpers and then bike touring. Like I don't know what it is, but they all seem to end up doing it.
I think it's like you said before, it's a bit punk.
Yeah.
And like everyone got a bit, I'm 6'4" and I've had a few injuries now. I can't ride a BMX bike anymore. It hurts quite a lot. So you look for something else. Yeah. And I don't know, for some reason everyone's landed on bike packing.
Yeah, because I think like there's Matt Walby, who's like he rides for Bombchag, and if you don't follow him on Insta, you definitely should. And then what's his name from Curve? Carlson.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name now. But yeah,
even that bike packing sucks guy on Instagram. If you don't follow him, that's well worth a follow. He's a BMXer, right? There's heaps of them. Yeah,
that's where that salt comes from.
Yeah.
So I guess we've worked out who you are and where you come from and what you kind of do. But one of the reasons you reached out to me to do this podcast is to talk about the stock issue. Apparently, there's a bit of a stock issue happening in the mountain bike and bikes part world. Firstly, talk us through like what's kind of happening. Roughly.
I mean, it's not just bikes; it's kind of all industries. If there's a bunch of things that are tightening up, kind of manufacturing and supply across, cars, electronic devices, obviously bikes. That's what we're here to talk about. It's everything. There's probably not much that's untouched at the moment. There's a few things happening, which I'm sure we'll get down into the weeds about in a second. But it's basically demand is quite high for, especially things called durable goods. That's hard manufactured stuff that lasts. Demand is very high, especially from like the US at the moment, and supply is tight because there's some factory closures and some kind of tail end stuff from COVID. And then there's no containers to move stuff around in. And like you combine those three things together and you've got a little bit of a shit show, really.
Yep.
I think if like these sorts of things aren't unusual, they happen all the time. But usually it's just one of those factors by themselves, and like we kind of the world can continue working, and we don't see much of it. But it's really last few months it's been a bunch of things stacking up together. So I guess in bikes specifically, I think we all. There's probably, as I said, there's like a bit of a demand side and a bit of a supply side. As we all know, because of COVID, demand for bikes shot up, not just for mountain bikes, but, for kids' bikes and for people trying to avoid catching the bus to work, buying a commuter bike. And especially e-bike sales have increased a lot kind of across the world. I was doing a bit of reading before this, and there was I read this article from Bicycle Retailer, which is one of the industry websites, and there was a kind of a summit where the CEO of Specialized and the CEO of Accel, who are one of the big European manufacturers, they were trying to encourage factories to increase their capacity because they had seen demand for bikes increase by 40% last year, and they were expecting potentially similar numbers this year. The tricky thing is, though, that for a long time the industry's actually had too much inventory. So a lot of wholesalers, a lot of brands have been carrying a lot of bikes in warehouses, and that's been a challenge for 10 plus years, like people holding too much stock basically. And last year everyone burnt their stock down, and so inventories for complete bikes have been really reduced, and so so that kind of fed the pipe last year when people started buying a lot of bikes, but that's now empty. Like that backup stock is gone, and so then now we have to rely on manufactured, newly made bikes to keep up with the excess demand, and so that that's kind of where the industry's sort of struggling to keep up. The complexity of this is that there's this long supply chain of all these little.
It's huge.
It's huge, right? And it's the same. It's all industries. If you go look at how a Toyota car is made in Japan, you've obviously got Toyota assembling a car at the end of a line, but all of the components are not made by Toyota. They're, perhaps the air conditioning unit is going to be made by a vendor who's one step down the supply chain, and then that vendor has their own sub vendors that are making the small parts that go into the air conditioning, and perhaps they have sub vendors again. And when you go down that chain, where you eventually end up is basically a small business that is making a dial for an air conditioning unit thing. And this small business has 20 people working for them, and they've got a little factory out in the burbs somewhere in Japan, I don't know. And they're just making this dial. And so when demand increases, everyone's got to step up. And this is the challenge that the industry's had, that big companies are saying demand's increasing. We expect that we're going to sell more bikes ongoing for the next 10 years. We need you to make investments in your factory. But what that actually looks like is quite a small business further down the supply chain spending $500,000 on a new injection molding machine and new staff to fulfill that. And where there's been the mismatch up until fairly recently, from what I'm hearing, is the factories are not prepared to make that investment because they basically think this is a bubble, and next year demand will go back to normal and we'll be fine. And so why would you spend $500,000 on an injection molding machine if it's a bubble? So that's now starting to change. I think that industry understands that more people, as a result of COVID and a few other, and probably just the trends like we've all seen, the more people on mountain bike tracks in the last couple of years, more people joining the sport, more families, more women. That it's just stepping that up. And so I think we're starting to see, what we're hearing is that investment's happening, but it will take a long time to catch up. So
definitely, if we stay on that kind of manufacturing side of things, being in my new role, and it's kind of opened my eyes to how small-minded I was and how narrow-tracked my eyes were to the industry. But if you just look at a humble pedal, you've got 3 or 4 manufacturers in one pedal, because the people that assemble it aren't the people that make it. Like you've
No.
got people that make the bearings, you've got another company that makes axle, and then you've got another company that molds like a plastic or an alloy pedal body, and then the pins as well. So if the pins aren't available, then the whole pedal doesn't exist. Yeah. It's just this tiny little ant in this massive ant's nest that makes the whole thing kind of collapse. It's super interesting. Like,
it is. And some people might roll their eyes and say, oh, well, you know, why we end up like this? Like, you know, we should make more things locally, and we should have, and we can get to that. And I agree with that in some way, but you can't do that with every component. And also these parts are very complicated, and we demand stuff for cheap.
And fast and
quality. And so you want all of those things to come together. Ultimately, what's happened is that the bike industry has concentrated itself in Taiwan through just the passage of time and whatever. And so if you want someone to make a bicycle pedal axle, there is a couple of factories in Taiwan that have been doing this for 30 years. They are really experienced. They know what they're doing. They know about material science related to pedal axles and all of these complicated, you know, things you can't even, I can't even wrap my head around it, right? But they know, they're the experts. And so that's kind of how we've ended up in this, that we've got all these like mini experts in their tiny field. Like the bicycle pedal axle guy there's a guy somewhere who's the man for bicycle pedal axle, and he's making the axles, and he also owns his own factory. And so that's kind of how we've ended up. That's kind of how we've ended up here.
And like the other thing that I didn't even consider is like Taiwan is a tiny country. Like it's not huge, and there's no way that it can house everyone that works at these factories. Like it's thousands and thousands of people, and just because the factory is in Taiwan doesn't mean that the people working there are from Taiwan. So there's fly in, fly out factory workers, which is a whole different concept to me. And then all of a sudden they can't come work.
Yeah. And there's also, you know, we start talking about how the bike industry is just this tiny little pimple on the global economy. If you follow anything in the news, you'll know that there's a chip shortage in the electronics manufacturing, and most chips are also made in Taiwan. Chips is a multi-billion-dollar business, and when push comes to shove, you're seeing like there are major companies piling money into the semiconductor industry that probably is very hard to draw that relationship. But ultimately, there's only a certain number of people who live in Taiwan, and there's a lot of money pouring into these other much bigger industries in the bike industry, and that's going to be drawing resources away from the bike industry at the moment. So, you know, what do we do? We need to
invest all the money.
It all, you know, everything always comes down to money. Not really,
but like, even if we were able to get stuff made by a factory, like the other thing that's blown my mind, I actually had the opportunity to ask someone at a shipping company at a dock, but you know, like a container is now, well, if they exist, it went from $4,000 to ship from Taiwan to here to now, I think $24,000. Like, do you know how the whole shipping thing is? Like, how are the containers that they don't just disappear, right?
Well, no, they don't. But there's a few things at play. When COVID happened, like shipping containers have a certain lifespan. Like you can imagine, they're going on boats backwards and forwards, getting dinged about, they're rusting on the sea. They only last, I don't know how many, but let's say the average shipping container only lasts 100 transits, for example. I don't actually know what the number is. So we constantly have to be manufacturing more shipping containers in order to replace the ones that are just old and rusty and need to be need to be gotten rid of. When COVID hit, all of the shipping container manufacturers basically thought that because the global economy was taking a turn, normally in the past when the global economy takes a dip, basically import-export type businesses slow down to follow that.
Yeah, usually. Yep.
Yeah. But so they stopped making containers. They basically shut down their factories and took their foot off the gas because they weren't going to be able to sell their containers to move the stuff around. But we all ended up, most people got a bunch of money from the government. They were stuck at home. They couldn't go on holidays. They couldn't spend their money on other things. And so they started buying stuff. They're buying durable goods, like I was saying before. And so the demand for these products that are manufactured in other places and shipped to where we are in Australia or US, whatever, skyrocketed. And so that started, that's the demand side. And so that's kind of putting the pressure on. But then there's these other issues around container capacity at ports. So ports are only able to accept a certain number of ships in at a time, and those containers have to be unloaded. We've seen, because you basically get this knock-on effect. So you get too many boats into port at one time, so they don't all fit, and then more have to wait outside the port before the first lot can be unloaded. And that basically has a cascading effect. So as more and more ships arrive, they can't be unloaded. They just have to sit and wait. So I read something the other day that there's something like 60 or 70 container ships sitting off the coast of Shanghai waiting to be reloaded in Shanghai. They're just sitting there not doing anything. And normally that would be zero. A container ship holds something like 10,000 containers per ship, something like that. So it's a lot of stuff that is not currently being shipped because they literally can't get the stuff on and off the boats kind of quickly enough. And it will keep compounding. There's no real end to that, because as more boats wait, it's kind of this kind of exponential problem where you can never get back on top of the issue until demand reduces and people are shipping less stuff. We also, because there's less planes flying, because there's less travel, you can't take advantage of as much air freight as you used to be able to. So normally the cargo holds of passenger planes are filled with DHL packages, but that's not able to kind of happen as much at the moment. So that's affecting everyone. It's really coming to hit home in Australia and in Europe and basically anywhere that's not the US. So the spot price for containers shipping China to US has gone through the roof, like 10, 15 times what it normally costs. And it's much more than the increase of the China to Australia route. So all of the shipping companies are moving their boats from their normal routes, let's say Taichung to Melbourne, to Shanghai to LA, basically, because the price they can get for their boats shipping Shanghai to LA is so much higher than anywhere else. But that's basically because Americans are addicted to online shopping on Amazon, really. Yeah, and so it's a strange problem. Like there's not enough. There's now, there's less boats coming to Australia because of that.
I mean, they've still got huge waits over in America. I think I saw a friend of mine over there posted a photo the other day, like a weight for a SRAM chain was now 2024, like for a GX chain. So it's not like they haven't been hit, and we've been okay.
They're not. They've got all the same problems as us, if not more. They're just, the demand for consumer goods is so high, so much higher than here, that it's not like they're getting prioritized for things. It's just they want so much more than us, and so they get more products, but that's still not enough to keep up with the relative number of people that are trying to buy things. So it's not like you're able to buy a SRAM chain exactly from a US online store, because then it's also not going to have stock basically. So,
and then I guess like the third and the most like obvious to everyone because they see it, is demand. Like, I mean, I've seen the numbers from where I work, and like, I'm sure you've seen the same. Like, you can tell when COVID hit on the demand scale. Like, it's obvious. You could look at a 10-year spectrum of data from sales, and you can pinpoint exactly without any numbers or anything. You can see this huge jump. And I guess the pessimistic side of me saw people getting a mountain bike and realizing it's too hard and, ends up on the secondhand market or something. But thankfully, like, that didn't happen, because now those guys that bought that $1,500 hardtail a year ago have thrashed it. It's dead. And now they want the next bike.
Better bike, yeah.
And demand is just not slowing down. Like, have you guys seen the same thing on the parts side?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really exciting time for the industry. Like, we'll be able to point back to this time and the kind of, the impact on the number of riders that are like hitting the trails, and ultimately it benefits all of us. We, like government is paying more attention, local government is paying more attention, and trying to formalize existing trail networks or build new trails like that. That's really cool. Certainly demand is up. We're seeing a lot of new customers come to our website, which probably means new riders most of the time. They have different buying habits. It's pretty interesting. Like, new riders tend to buy more clothes, and existing riders buy less clothes. That's a funny, there's these funny little, kind of things that fall out of that. It'll be interesting in a couple of years' time. How many of these new riders will stick on, and how many will drop away? Because inevitably, some people will drop away. They get interested in other things, or mountain biking is just a fad. But there probably is, like, as we were saying before, like, bikes are better, cheaper bikes are better. You can get great dual suspension bike for $3,500. You can also get a pretty awesome hardtail for $1,000, $1,500 now. Whereas even when I was working on a shop floor, $1,000 hardtail was garbage. You wouldn't actually want to ride that anywhere. It would break. It was clunky. The gears didn't work. Like, the game's just changed. And so for that really just average recreational rider, I'm talking about like core mountain biker, that average recreational rider who's maybe getting out with their family once a month on their local trails, like, they've got access to good bikes now. The trails are better signed, more formalized, easier to ride. Like, there's more green blue stuff than there was 10 years ago. Now it's maybe not enough of the more difficult stuff, but it's probably a different topic. But it's become a more of just an average sport. Like, your neighbor could be a mountain biker. Like, that's different to how it was. So it's cool.
Yeah, I've definitely voiced my opinions on some trails being way too easier. Like, it's just a thing. But I mean, like, it is getting. That's from my perspective. Like, that's from being around people that ride fast and wanting to see the elite level. But then, like, I'm stoked to see, like, I saw a lady on a hybrid with, like, her sons on hardtails the other day, and it was just sick. Like, it's so good.
It It is. I like if you like you and I, of course you want. I want to see harder tracks. You know, some even like Threadbow has made their trails easier over the last 5+ years. Back when there was just the one Cannonball track, that was a gnarly track, and now Cannonball's less gnarly, and every other track is even easier than that, right? So you can see that there's something changing there. I'm hopeful. This is my like kind of theory about what will happen here. He said there's all these green and blue tracks right now, and that's because like there are just more new mountain bikers in Australia than there have been in the past, and so the demand is for easy tracks. But over time, those riders that they've joined the sport in the last 2, 3, 4 years, they're going to get better and better and better. There's going to be more and more advanced riders, and we should start to see more hard tracks get created. That's my theory. I don't know if that will actually come true.
That's a good theory, but yeah.
It's because it's different. We're different, right? And you can say, oh, well, in Europe, they've got these really sick World Cup level tracks, and there's heaps of, really great hard lift assisted riding all over the place. But they're on a different, they've been, there's this huge group of people who've been mountain biking for 20 years. There's all these advanced riders who are looking for that kind of challenge. But we're probably at a different part of the journey here, I think. We're like, we're still, there's obviously heaps of great riders in Australia. It's not the same kind of level of,
I think we see that. And I guess that's the point where I come from is like, we can't have those higher level riders if we don't have the higher level tracks. But then 100%. Again, Troy Brosnan is apparently a pretty good rider, and I ride the same trails as him. And I'm not faster, so it puts all my theories out of
you're 100% right. Like, especially if we've seen like all these local councils throwing $50 million at a new trail network. You're throwing $50 million at a new trail network. Like, give a dog a bone. Like, come on, it doesn't all have to be double black, but like a little bit in there would be good, please. Hopefully we get a bit more.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll start happening one day. And I mean, like, you look at Derby and Maydena and some of the stuff that's happening up in New South Wales now, and they're definitely setting the pace. Or even Canberra, I think Miko Williams or Mick up in Canberra just built a gnarly Miko 37 on Instagram. Have a look at his double black that he just built, and there's no way I'm riding that thing.
Yeah, that's sick.
I guess get back on topic a little bit, but how has it been communicating this to customers? Like, as I said, I'm sometimes ignorant to this stuff because I'm in the industry to a point where I know it's already happening. So to me, it's kind of common sense and stuff that's I know. But for most punters, like, and most people out there that are just wanting to ride their bike and have fun, like, they don't get to see these numbers. How hard has it been for you to communicate these issues to customers?
Yeah, like, I mean, the first one is people don't know it's happening. So that's just like that anything is happening at all. That's probably, most people don't fully appreciate that anything is happening at there's any supply chain disruption. And so when they go on the website or they visit the local bike shop and see that something's out of stock, and we don't necessarily even know when something that's out of stock is going to be coming back into stock all the time.
So that's a hard one. Yeah,
it's hard. It's like, what do you tell to the customer? Because that's not something people are used to. Normally they see something out of stock. Oh yeah, it'll be back in stock in 2 weeks. Like, that's not what's happening here. So that's definitely hard just explaining, because as we've just been talking about for the last 30 minutes or whatever, and we haven't even, I've got a list here of all of the things that are impacting. We've only hit 1/3 of what's on this list, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's a long list. So trying to explain that to a customer, it's not even worth it. It's not. And at the end of the day, it's not necessarily relevant for them. What they want to know is like, can I get the thing that I want, and how long might it be, or what else can I get that will work? And that's probably the second part is the thing that I think probably until the end of next year, we might have to wrap our heads around. If you've got your favorite tire combo, your very specific tread pattern, casing type, rubber type, like you know the tire you want. If it's out of stock, probably don't bother waiting. You should probably try something else, because it's that kind of, like, if you're that choosy about things, you might end up kind of disappointing yourself a little bit. So that's definitely.
I mean, like, you just look at I think we had there's a bit of a joke around SA for a moment. Like, if you had a DHR2, you were God. Like, you were the god of shops in Adelaide for sure.
Yeah, it's for sure. It's like that. Yeah, it's that kind of stuff. Different brands are impacted in different ways. Some have managed to stay on top of it pretty well. Some are struggling. I think it'd be interesting. I know we spoke about this earlier when we spoke a week or two ago. I think it's no secret, like Strand and Shimano are under a lot of pressure. They supply all the drivetrains in the industry, all the OEMs. So that the OEMs, the bike manufacturers, obviously gobble up most supply, and they're really forecasting a big couple of years coming up. So Strand and Shimano they're working very hard to fulfill the OEMs, and then the aftermarket kind of comes second after OEMs, just because of the size of the two different markets. So Strand and Shimano are gonna already, there's stock outs on certain things, and that'll probably continue to be the case for a while. It is, I guess, the thing I'm wondering is, if you flog the chain on your bike, and you can't find the chain, what do you do?
Ride like Remy Morton, I think. Yeah. He didn't choose to ride chainless. He just couldn't find a chain.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's the plot twist to that video.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, like chainless used to be a thing of BMX, maybe chainless mountain biking or bit.
I remember that. Yeah, scooter riding is good.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just to touch on what I said before, like, for customers and people that are just riding bikes and aren't as deep in the industry like I am, like I'm overkill, and like a lot of people in the industry are. But like for people who just want to chain, it's just to go and escape all the shit that's happening. So like it is quite a big deal, and they shouldn't really have to care about this stuff, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
No, yeah, and it's very frustrating. And I'm very sympathetic to, like, if you're your average bike shop, you're on the cold face of dealing with just regular customers. Someone comes in with a fogged out bike, needs a new chain. How do you tell them, sorry, we can't fix your bike right now? That's like, that's a weird thing to have. It's a weird problem to deal with. And it would be sad if the result of this kind of supply chain disruption was that bike shops closed down because they couldn't provide the parts to fix people's bikes. Like, that would be a bad outcome of these shortages. That would be pretty extreme, but it's probably not out of the question. Like,
I think it's already happened, like, for sure. I've heard some rumors around some big shops that just couldn't.
Well, they can't supply bikes. It's more fundamental, right? If you're a big shop and you sell, say 1,000, 2,000 bikes a year, say on a normal year, you need to sell 2,000 bikes to pay your wages and pay your rent, pay your overheads. Like that's your kind of minimum number of sales. And then the main bike suppliers that you supply bikes from can only sell you 900 bikes. It's a big gap to make up. So,
900 bikes that may trickle in over the year.
And which is unknown as well.
Which again touches on that. I guess, as you said, like you used to work in a shop and you'd see there'd be at least 200 or 300 bikes that were on sale all the time because they had too much stock. Whereas now there's an empty warehouse and little shops like that maybe stock 30 or 40 bikes. They can't get 30, 40 bike deliveries. They get 10 or 12, maybe if they're lucky. And seeing that happen is insane. And
you rely on, as a shop, you stock, say your average small shop with space with 40 bikes on the floor. That's covering every category. So you got 10 kids bikes, you got 10 hybrid commuter bikes, you got 10 mountain bikes, you got 10 road bikes. Like that's what a shop floor looks like. You got your 10 mountain bikes, they're spanning from $500 to $5,000, let's say, in the average shop. But you have your $4,500 alloy SLX equipped dual suspension bike in a medium. You're using that bike to sell the size, every size of that same bike, plus the bike above and the bike below in terms of your price point.
Exactly.
Sort of thing. And normally those bikes are held in the supplier's warehouse, but now those bikes don't exist. And so you've got that medium dual suspension, whatever bike on the floor. You might have been able to warehouse a little bit of stuff in your storage, but actually you don't have, like, you can't, a tall customer walks in, you can't sell them a bike because you didn't buy an XL and the supplier doesn't have the XL. So, it's not just what's on the floor. It's what exists, right? Yeah.
And that's why you're seeing these bigger shops. Like I've seen stories of like shops buying at least 200 bikes and just getting them all delivered and just holding on to the stock because they have that power and that's what they've got to do.
Yeah. I think the other thing, I haven't seen this yet, but there's obviously been a move to more direct-to-consumer models. There's a bunch of reasons for that, which most people would understand. But one of the advantages of a direct-to-consumer model is there's less time and delay between when a bike leaves a factory and when a bike, gets to a customer's house. A direct-to-consumer brand theoretically can pre-sell bikes before they've even left the factory. Not everyone does that, but they can. If you've got a website where you sell your bikes directly to the customer, you know what's coming, you know when it's going to come. You can potentially pre-sell those bikes and get them into customers' hands instead of if you were a bike shop where it's got to be passed through multiple warehouses, multiple delivery services. That's all delayed. That adds 3 to 4 months really from when the bike comes off the production line, goes into a box, to when it hits the customer's house. We're talking about 3 or 4 month delay. If it's a direct to consumer brand that's air freighting out of their factory, it's 2 weeks.
Especially if they're like air freighting from Europe.
Exactly.
Where they can just build the bike and send it straight from Europe. And it probably takes less time than it does to get from Queensland to here. That puts us on another kind of tangent or topic as well. But like, say if you do even have the product in the warehouse and you guys are in Victoria, as we mentioned before, for your warehousing, to get, like, anyone that's seen my Instagram stories knows how much trouble I'm having getting stuff. Like, I think something from Sydney is possibly going to be a 3-week wait for me. Like, how have you guys tried to adapt by using other people, or is how big is Ozpost as a company that you have to kind of use them? And
so we use on our site, we have 2 shipping methods available for customers: Australia Post, regular and express, or they can use toll. Almost all customers choose Australia Post. I think everyone, I have a parcel locker at, I use the parcel locker out the front of my Woolies. You can pick up in the post office. Australia Post is so much more convenient. It's also usually the most cost competitive. So Australia Post has really just become the dominant e-commerce shipping provider for most domestic stuff. International is obviously very different. There's been 2 closures of distribution facilities in Victoria over the last couple of weeks because of COVID scares, or, not scares, but, COVID cases. They're only shut for a short time, but it's like that container thing. Every time you pull a bit of capacity out of the system and demand's high, you start stacking, that demand never ends, and it starts to build up, kind of back up. This weekend we've had a notification from Australia Post saying that stuff from Friday to Monday won't ship. If it's a regular Australia Post, they're not picking up any regular parcels from our warehouse. So that means that, Australia Post is trying to deal with these problems because the problem is they've got overflowing warehouses. So they've obviously got warehouses where they're pushing mail through, and it's just full. They're full. They can't actually fit any more mail. That's why they're stopping taking deliveries, but it doesn't stop us from taking orders. So our customers are still coming to our website, even if we have a banner notification on the top that says Australia Post is not shipping for the next 3 days. Most people will still buy because they expect it to come, and so that just creates a delay. So shipping has slowed down a lot. We're pretty quick. Like our most orders get out of our warehouse same day, lots of our customers always give us good reviews saying, I ordered yesterday and arrived a day later in Brisbane or something, which is cool to see. But right now, a bit of a challenge. I've got, Darwin's terrible at the best of times, but like,
wonder why.
Yeah, but no, it can honestly, road freight can take up to 4 weeks now to get to Darwin. Yeah. Which is, that's an age in this era. We're not really used to that. So
that's the other thing. Like, everything is so instant. Like, I'm used, you're used to things getting here the day after, especially from MTB Bike Direct. I've ordered plenty of stuff from you guys, and been here within 1 to 2 days. But lately it's a week maybe. And it's an insane time to wait around. I'm not in any rush for it or anything. Like, there's absolutely no reason I needed this stuff last week at all. Like, I can't ride my bike.
It's frustrating. You're addicted to looking at the tracking. Like, why haven't you left some weird suburb why haven't you left Albury in 5 days?
Yeah. Why are you still in transit to Melbourne? It's not an 8-day trip. Exactly. Do you guys, I guess, I mean, there is that banner option, but it's there's a lot of reading and effort involved for a lot of people to understand kind of what's happening as well. So
it's not much to be done really. For us, we give the customer the information. If they're frustrated with slow shipping, they can of course just request a refund, which would give them. I think most people are pretty reasonable though. If explained, they generally understand what's happening. It's like anything. Like, I think if you've made your best effort, people are very appreciative of that, and there's only so much that we can all do. Like, we all know how messed up the last 18 months have been, and everyone's just yeah, people, people are nice. People they just get it, right?
It's funny. I was speaking 18 months ago. I was chatting to Phil Wood the other day. Go and listen to his episode if you haven't. But sent him a message. I'm like, do you remember when we were all worried that our jobs were going to be gone? Like, I remember coming back from nationals thinking I wasn't going to have a job in a shop because it's going to be closed down.
Yeah, it's what a change, right? It's I mean, yeah. Look, some people have lost their jobs in other industries. I don't want to joke about that. Yeah, no. Well, look, Australia's fared pretty well on the whole. That's why all bike shops are doing well, because people genuinely kept their jobs and want to buy bikes. So that's cool. But yeah, it's like no one could have predicted it, right? I think, yeah, if you could obviously wind the clock back and put some other things in place, maybe we would have lined up another shipping provider. Had we known, I don't know if it would have fixed it, to be honest. But
I think, like, even on the jobs front, like we go full circle here, but like, so many people who used to have to work in their office and sit there and do their job and 9 till 5, and we're both in that different position, and a lot of people are now in that position where I work maybe 8 till 8. I don't work throughout those hours, but like I'll take an hour off, go and do some stuff, but I'm still getting paid, and then that other stuff I'm doing is scouring the web for bike parts. So like the technology has allowed people to do more shopping and do more stuff online without having any pay decreases.
Yeah. And then, like, I go Thursday, I always go for a ride. So I'll knock off at about 2 today, go for a ride. I'm amazed at how many people are out riding at the same time. Like, it's the middle of the day on a weekday. There's always a bunch of cars in the car park, and
don't you guys have things to do? Again, probably why there's such a boom in riding. Like, the flexibility is now there for people to.
Yeah, 100%.
What have I missed from your list?
I don't want to get too far back down the rabbit hole. I guess the only interesting part about this is like manufacturing coming back local, not just in Australia, but like across the world. And it's like I said before, it's not going to be everything, and nor should it be everything, because there are some things that are Australia can't make everything. That's obviously completely impractical. To use a specific example, like tires, for example, tire factories are close to rubber farms, and rubber farms are in Indonesia and Thailand. So all tires are made in Indonesia and Thailand. And so that, I think people understand why that is. I don't think anyone would think that tires would ever be made in Australia. But there's definitely been, and probably was happening before COVID anyway, but there's been a resurgence of Aussie-made bike products, especially soft goods, because it's a bit easier to do. But now, it's especially like bags and in the bike packing type community that's massive for whatever reason. Clothes, there's some clothing that at least part of manufacturing happens locally. There's now there's at least 4 kind of lubricant, bike wash type brands made locally. There's all these things. There's then the much more high tech stuff like the Williams Racing stuff, which is on the very edge, and that's a lot harder to do because you have to come up with the technology and the smarts to actually do that, right? And
I never want to do what Mick's doing.
Exactly. It's hard, and it costs money. Like you got to buy machinery, and as we're talking about, injection molding machine. So can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. But yeah, that's really cool to see. I think we'll see a bit more of that in the future. Also, obviously, not just in Australia, but everywhere. In Europe, in the US, there's some companies have always done it, like companies like Hope. Obviously, always made stuff locally. But there's like more, companies like Intend or Trick Stuff that are doing, that are growing. They're really on the edge of the kind of mountain bike industry at the moment. Like they're on cutting edge in terms of what they're developing, and it's all made. All their stuff is made, onshore. That is in the country that the brand is from. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Australia can maybe follow that path a bit more. See if there's, don't know, the Australian made suspension fork would be pretty wild. I don't know anyone that's doing that, but maybe we'll get there one day.
Be epic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think again, like I have seen this massive resurgence of Australian made stuff, like what Elk's doing with like titanium valves and their kind of cool stuff. And then you've got, obviously Mick, like he's on another level because he's just got these crazy ideas that he dreams up and then makes them happen. But then like clothing brands like Huck the World, Franked, I guess Barco at some point, like everyone's just doing their own. Like I guess this extra downtime has helped that.
Yeah, and also like everywhere's different. Not everyone wants to, American products or American branding doesn't necessarily fit the Australian market. Like Darko's nailed it, right? Like Darko, they understand their customers and they really fit into their customer base and that like Northern Beaches kind of style.
Yeah.
We work with Darko and they're really nice bunch of guys, but even though I'm from Sydney, I don't like the palm leaf motif. But people love it, and that's because it's local, and people want something that's local. They don't always want something that comes from far. It feels like it comes from far away, and it's not like genuine. So it's really cool. Like in clothing, it really like because you wear clothing, it's like it's part of you, but it fits into everything. Like I think the thing that just adapting products to fit their market better is where it's at. That's why we want stuff that's made locally, because it really fits, who the customers are and what they want. And that that's what we try to do at Direct. Like all the brand, like there's no, we always think about like, is this when we're stocking a new brand, like is this something that our customers actually want? And there's big international brands that we have spoken to that we think, it's not necessarily going to fit our customer base. So,
Has that been kind of harder to do in these times? Because you're like, well, they've got stock. So
yeah, I mean that's certainly it. But we also see, definitely like if you've got stock, we'll take it. But it doesn't work everywhere. Like sometimes people want the thing and they won't settle for the other thing. And like that relationship is very interesting across different categories. Across, there's Australian Shimano is very obvious, right? Like generally on Australian bike, you only want Australian Shimano. You want Shimano bike, you only want Shimano.
Hence why I've got a bike ripped apart behind me.
Yeah, and like drifting, people don't necessarily want something else because it doesn't fit it doesn't fit that, and so you can't just provide other some third brand because it doesn't the customer doesn't want it. The customer wants what they want. So
I think as a species, mountain bike riders are very loyal to their brands. Like I
Yeah.
With, I mean, I'm the same. Like I'm one of the. I can't stand wearing Fox gear with trolley. Like it'll rule my head. But people that are they're just like so single-minded, and they want that product because of its story and their history. And
I'm totally different. I run some weird stuff on my bikes, and I always have, and I've always liked, and maybe that's why I've ended up in this job. I've always liked trying different stuff and mixing and matching and seeing what works. And like, I think everyone should do it, because odds on, if you're just running the same tire combo that all your mates are running, you're probably not running the best combo for you, because you've got a different riding style, you've got different weight, you've got a different bike. There's all these individual factors that means that whatever tire combo is the most popular, like it's probably that there's so many different tire combos you can run, you're probably not optimized. And like, it's fun trying new stuff and thinking about, this was a bit drifty, or this was, I found this setup a bit slow or whatever. Like, it's fun tinkering with that stuff. And I think everyone should, especially if you're into it. Give it a go.
And I mean, taking us back to like the quality of product, like as a reviewer, I did a group test on 4 different brakes in the last Revo, not the one that just dropped, the one before. And dude, I couldn't say one was bad, because they all would have thrown me over the handlebars. But they all just suit different people. And I guess, when it comes down to componentry, trying those different things, like I have a bunch of stuff coming for this bike, and some testing works. Like it's all just going to be testing. So I'm on your page. It's a BMX thing. It's a dirt jump BMX thing for sure.
It is a bit. Yeah.
Is there anything else that I've missed?
I don't want to bore dear listener with the specifics of the rubber industry supply chain, but
oh mate, yeah.
No. It's
the rubber shortage is real.
Yeah. There's a bunch like that. So, but no, that's I think that's probably the long and short of it.
Yeah, cool. I guess we'll start wrapping up with the last 3 questions I like to ask people. First one, what advice would you have for someone that wants to get into, you kind of already mentioned it, but like get into that behind the scenes role, become like an inventory manager or a product manager or something like that?
Definitely work in a bike shop for a couple of years, either on the sales floor or as a mechanic. I'm not that much of a good mechanic, so I've always been on the sales floor. Like I do all my work on my own bikes, but I wouldn't have someone paying me to work on their bike, because I couldn't ask for very much money. But I've always worked on the sales floor. It's really, and not, there's some cool shops out there, but honestly, working in your local neighborhood shop that just deals with real people. If you want to work in the bike industry, most sales are with, not the core riders. It's real ordinary people, and understanding what they want and how they ride their bikes, and just keeping an open mind to that is really important. The other thing is, some people might disagree with me, but the industry is becoming a bit more professional, and going to university in a relevant field. So that could be, I've done undergrad and postgrad in economics and data science. The postgrad in data science is what got me this job, because it is where a big company that deals with a lot of data, and knowing what to do with that is very important. So that's very specific, but like doing an accounting degree or doing a business degree or doing a marketing degree, engineering, industrial design, graphic design, like semi-vocational type degrees will probably put you in a good, if you mix that, like I have a decent education background, I've worked in a bike shop, I love bikes, understand customer, like that. If you can stitch all of that together, you're in a pretty good position. Not everyone has to go to university. I don't think that either. Not lots of people have wound up in really good jobs in the bike industry without a university degree. But if you're unsure, I think it's a pretty good way to lead yourself down a path where you'll be in a good position, I guess. Yeah,
I think and university does teach a lot about what you actually want to do as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm in a position that I'm super lucky to have, and every day it's like taking a pencil to a rocket launcher fight, and I'm back at studying. Like, it's just something you got to do to be the best, because the industry is much bigger and it's definitely much more professional. From like, gone are the days of, like, look at Lusty Industries. It's the best one. Gone are the days of him running it out of the shed.
Exactly. And you know, back in the day, lots of wholesalers basically had a warehouse and 10 sales reps, and that was the business. And so the 10 sales reps didn't have to be university qualified, because they had to be personable, they had to have like good work ethic, and they had to know the product, and like that would get you a good job. But sales reps they're not disappearing by any means, but sales reps need to do more things. There's less of those jobs, and wholesalers are becoming, PSI have a pretty big marketing team now. Lusty have a pretty big marketing team. You need to, and they also have, they spend a lot of time like kind of optimizing their business. Like, that sounds so general and whatever, but like that, those are like optimizing business, like hard mathematics or like hard kind of business decisions or whatever, right? Yeah.
Did I have a 2-hour meeting on Google Analytics this afternoon? That's why I had to bump this. Like, you don't just piss in the wind anymore. Like, as you said, like Lockie getting that job at PSI and making that marketing department happen. Like, look at the amount of people that see that now. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's definitely changing, and I think that's a very good point. Do you wish you had done anything differently in the past, or changed anything to get to where you are now?
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm at I don't feel like a wise old man who's arrived at some destination. I'm just kind of stumbling through, so I don't really I don't think so. I think I think just, always, work hard, kind of put the right foot forward, be kind to people. If you're always trying to do the right thing, you probably can't go too far wrong. Yeah. So I think I've always tried to do that. So.
Yeah, as long as you try. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but if you're trying,
that's exactly it. And you don't know where you're going to end up, right? Like, I've had no ultimate goal. Yeah, everyone. I feel like everyone's just stumbling around, and you wind up somewhere.
Oh, mate, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like, that's what I love about Mad Dog Boris's tattoo. I have no fucking idea where I'm going, because I don't know how I got where I am. Yeah. Well, I know how, but it would. If I look back in high school, and they would do, you go to uni, you get a job, done.
Yeah.
No. And last one, which seems to be the hardest question, but if you're looking to get motivated or, trying to get something done, what music do you kind of like to listen to amp yourself up?
Oh, that is hard. You should have pre-prepared me for that one.
I like to prepare for that.
I listen to a lot of techno. When I am working and when I'm riding. So, what I'm listening to at the moment, usually like, long SoundCloud sets. I was listening to J to G yesterday. I think she's she's cool, a bit more like slightly funky, slightly vocally kind of. What else do I listen to? That's kind of, whatever's playing on SoundCloud. Otherwise, Favorite band would be Fat Freddy's Drop.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bit different. I like, just cool live performance. And they're coming to Kiwi. They're coming to Australia next year. So I doubt they'll come to Darwin. So I might have to go find them.
Not going to go to the Darwin Arena or something like that.
We don't have much of an arena. There's a decent music scene in Darwin, and we were lucky. We've had no COVID this year, basically, so we've had a few festivals and a few bigger events. Carl Cox came here, pretty randomly, big UK DJ. Didn't go anywhere else, just came to Darwin.
Why not?
Yeah, so that was, felt like I was in Ibiza.
I mean, to go on a tangent here, even though we're supposed to be ending up and stuff, but man, I think Darwin has really benefited from COVID because no one I know would have ever gone to Darwin. They always go to Brisbane, they always go to Sydney, but we can't. So everyone went to Darwin, and they're just like, why didn't I do this before? It's sick. So
it is it's a great city. It's very easygoing. Like, you feel it on the street. People just come up and talk to you randomly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm from Sydney. That's never happened in my life. And like in Darwin, the first second day I was in Darwin, I went to just the local IGA on one of these. They've got these like electric hire bikes just parked all on the street, like share bikes everywhere. I jumped on one. They were apparently brand new Darwin. Pulled it out the front of this IGA. Walked into the IGA to buy some groceries. Came out, and the cashier just walked out of the IGA, left a bunch of people in a line waiting to pay for their thing. Just come out and talk to me about what the orange hire bike was. And we stood there chatting about it for 5 minutes, and the other people in the IGA came out to also join in the conversation. I was like, what sort of weird, overly friendly
community?
Yeah. It's cool, but it's still a capital city. Like, there's still a CBD, and there's still you got all the shops that you want. It's a great place. Just not good mountain biking. Hope you like fishing.
But again, I might have to jump to Shimano for fishing stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm definitely keen to get up there. I've heard some good things about like just the general trail riding and stuff. Like, a few of my mates have been up there, so I definitely want to get up there at some point. Just the heat and humidity, man, like, that'll kill me. Yeah,
but when it's winter down south, it's perfect weather up here. It's like
true,
30 dry heat. It's not humid at all. A little bit of a breeze is beautiful for about 5 months of the year. It's perfect weather.
The rest of it is just
the rest of it's awful. Yeah.
Easy, man. Well, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to discuss this stuff. It's been really insightful and interesting. So I think a lot of people get some stuff out of it for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. Easy, man. We'll speak again soon. And thanks, mate. Cheers. Bye. There we go, guys. There was a bit of an episode about everything that's going on in the world of COVID. I hope you got a bit more clarity about everything that's happening. Thanks so much for Nat for reaching out to me and getting that one sorted. Really interesting chat. And as I said, we will have a discount code or a code where you can save some money and head over to Mountain Bikes Direct and grab some of their cool stuff if it's in stock, of course. As per usual, thanks to FE Sports, NS Dynamic, Frank's Mountain Bike Apparel, 2Up Bike Co, Dirt Surfer, Crush, Tailored Trails, and more to come for sponsoring this podcast. Thank you.